So today we're going to pick up from where we stopped last week when we're talking about the hair typing system. First of all, check my hair out. This has become like my go-to style. It's so easy. It's just 3 twists on this side, 3 twists on this side, comes together. Super easy. And then it just stays. I'm like, oh, finally found my go-to style. So anyway, if you want to try this style out, you should. It's absolutely worth it. And it's easy. Literally anybody can do it. As far as you can twist your hair, you can actually pull this off. Anyway, so back on topic. Yeah, I said I was going to discuss porosity and density today. Those are the last two for the hair typing system. Porosity is basically the ability of your hair to absorb and retain moisture. So basically how porous your hair strands are. So I think the easiest way I'm going to explain this is to use something that we're all familiar with, like soil. If you did agricultural science at any point in school, you know, like we have 3 soil types: the sandy, the loamy, and the clay. Now the sandy soil is sharp, it's just open, very porous. If you pour like a cup of water over sandy soil, it just goes straight on, and then in a couple of minutes it's dry all over again, right? Now the loam is in between. It takes in moisture, yes, but not as quickly, and it doesn't dry as fast. Then on the other end is clay soil. Clay soil will not take in moisture as easily. It will sit on it for a really long time. Water can just sit on the top of clay like for hours, if not days. And then when it eventually absorbs that water, the water stays trapped. That's why most times clay, like maybe from like the river or whatever, is always like very wet, and it can stay in that state for like a long time. So now that I've established that background with soil, which most people are familiar with, let me now relate it to hair porosity. High porosity hair, medium porosity, and low porosity are basically like that: sandy, loam, and clay. If you have high porosity hair, it means that your hair will just easily absorb moisture like really fast. Those people where if you just put any product or put water in your hair, immediately it's moisturized immediately. And if you put like a deep conditioner or a leave-in conditioner or any other kind of moisturizing product on your hair, it takes like almost immediately. Your hair is high porosity. Now the downside, however, is that it loses that moisture just as fast. So if you just moisturize your hair right now and it feels all nice and soft, and then a few moments later you feel your hair and it's dry again, chances are your hair is high porosity. So the best thing for high porosity hair, because of course you don't really have to do too much for your hair to absorb moisture, the most important thing for high porosity hair types is to seal in your moisture. So if you know your hair is high porosity, you should invest in good sealants, butters, heavy oils like castor oil, whipped sealing butters, etc. So when you've put in moisture or whatever in your hair, you use the sealant over it to trap the moisture inside. So that's how you stop it from escaping. If you don't do that, your hair will always be dry. No matter how much moisture you're putting in high porosity hair, if you're not sealing that moisture in, your hair will get dry again. So it's like back to square one. So you moisturize, and you can literally not keep the moisture in. So that's how you can handle that. Now medium porosity or normal porosity hair is, I don't exactly like the term normal because it kind of suggests the others are abnormal. So let's say medium, yes. Medium porosity hair, it will take a bit longer, not as long as low po, but it will take longer to absorb the moisture, and then the moisture stays in longer. But it's like the in-between point. So it's not that hard. It's basically low maintenance hair. It's not you don't really lose moisture as quickly. Your hair won't dry as quickly, etc. But it's still a good idea to seal in your moisture as well. It's still a good idea even though you have like medium porosity hair. And I should point out that most people would either have medium, I'm not saying everyone, but yeah, most people will either have medium porosity or low porosity hair. Hardly would people have high porosity hair naturally. I'll explain. Because of the way the cuticles of the hair lay, which is what really affects porosity. If it's very flat, it means there are not a lot of spaces for moisture to go through, so it will be low porosity. If it's slightly raised, then it's going to be in the medium. If it's like fully raised, however, then it will be porous. But most times, porosity can be altered, sort of. So you may not necessarily have high porosity hair, but your hair can become high porosity because of certain hair choices or certain things that you have done to your hair over time, and those things will make your hair to be more porous. For example, using harsh color products, because color products have to raise up the cuticles of your hair for the color, especially permanent hair dyes, so that the color can take. So sometimes when that raising happens and you're taking the color, it may not flatten back to normal. So you may have started out on like normal porosity, but you end up, after you color your hair, you end up with high porosity hair. That's why you see some people complain that when they color their hair, it starts to feel dry, or it no longer retains moisture as it used to. So that might be one explanation for that. So sometimes it may not necessarily be like your natural hair state. So you have to pay attention to, did you do certain treatments? Sometimes it could be heat damage. Sometimes it could be color damage. People who relax their hair almost always have high porosity hair because of course, the sodium hydroxide has altered the protein bonds of your hair. So yeah, your hair would not retain moisture like that. Now, to the low porosity hair type, that hair type has the hardest time absorbing any kind of moisture, like really, really hard time. So if you just put a conditioner or any oil, whatever, on your hair, people with low porosity hair would notice that the product just sits. You can see like white residue or whatever. You just see the product still sitting on the hair, and this could be like for a really long time, sometimes hours, and the hair is not drying because it's taking forever to absorb the product. So if you have that hair type, you realize that it's really, really hard sometimes for you to get moisture in, so your hair might still always be dry. But if you succeed in getting the moisture into your hair, then the moisture stays in. So I think for people with low porosity hair, heat is literally your friend. Not direct heat, like not like using blow dryers or straighteners, or not that kind of heat, but like a steam, a deep conditioning treatment that uses heat. So you go like maybe under a dryer with your hair in a shower cap or under a steamer. The reason is when heat is when the heat starts to get to your hair strands, it starts to expand them and the cuticles raise up so that the moisture can get in. So if you have low porosity hair, you should be doing regular steams. That's how you get moisture in your hair. It's not enough to just apply the product. It might just sit there and never actually get absorbed. So if you do a steam, if you use heat to like get the product in there, it stays inside. That's the good thing with your hair type. It stays inside. It's not going to easily escape. So if you do that maybe for the whole month, you've noticed that your hair might still be quite moisturized from your last deep conditioning treatment. So low porosity hair, right, is I don't know how to explain it, but it's tricky in the sense that once you figure out how to get that moisture in, you're fine. But if you have not figured it out, you'll be struggling for the longest time. So you might start to really feel like you don't have good hair, or your hair is constantly dry, but it's just because you've not figured it out. So that's on porosity. I'm just going to run through it again. Low porosity, medium porosity, and high porosity. And you can always tell by doing a strand test. Yes. So the strand test, if you don't know if you're not sure where your hair falls, you can take a strand of product-free hair. It's important that the hair is product-free, because products would alter, how this experiment will go. If you take a strand of product-free hair, you put like half a glass or a full glass of water, whatever, and drop your hair strand in it. If it is high porosity, it would absorb the water almost immediately and start to sink to the bottom of the glass or of the cup here. But if it is medium, it might just sink to like halfway, and it will take longer for that sinking to happen. But if your hair is low porosity, it will float. So it's just going to stay on top because the water can't pass through it. So it's just going to sit on top of it for a while. So you can do a strand test with a glass of water to determine if you're not sure what type you have. But of course, you can also go to a natural hair salon. Like I have a natural hair salon. You can also go and ask and request for that service. I say, okay, I would like to know my hair type. I'd like to know what porosity my hair is. Could you do like a strand test for me? And you'll also know. So once you know, it's easier to take care of your hair because you know what will work and what will not work for your hair type. The second aspect that we're dealing with today is density. So hair density is basically how full or how dense is your hair. Density is measured by the amount of strands per, say, like a square inch of your scalp. So people who have different density types have different concentration of hair strands in the same surface area size. So the three types of hair density, you have high density, you have medium, and you have low density. So if you have high density hair, your hair will be super full and thick, because for example, I don't know the specific number, but for example, let's say one small portion of your scalp, you could have like a concentration of about 500 strands in that portion. So they're tightly packed together. Now somebody with medium density might have so if you have 500, that person might have about 350 or 300 or thereabouts. And then somebody with low density might have 150 to 200 strands in the same surface area size. So people who have low density hair are the ones that people say, oh, their hair is scanty, and there's hair all over their head. Like maybe their edges are fine. It's not like they're having alopecia or they've lost their edge. The edges are fine. They have hair all the way to the back of their head, but the difference is the hair is sparsely distributed. It's not concentrated so much in one place. So by the time they put the hair together, it's just like small. It doesn't look like a lot. So that's low density hair. There's not much you can do to influence your hair density. It's a genetic thing. So you either have really dense hair or you don't. If it is something that is triggered by some kind of hair loss, so you move from having dense hair to having less dense hair, then you, of course, when you stop whatever triggered the hair loss and your hair starts to grow back in, you return to your original density. But if it's genetic, like the number of follicles distributed on your hair, on your head rather, that grows hair, is not as plenty, or it's not as much as someone else's, you cannot manufacture extra follicles. That's just it. So that's your natural hair state. What you can do is to make sure that all your follicles are producing hair and your hair is healthy, and then you embrace it. On the plus side, people with less density tend to have more curls, because like the hair, they can clump together more and form like nice curls and everything. So curly styles look nice on that kind of hair texture or that kind of density. The medium density, which most people have, is just in between, really. So your hair is full enough, not outrageously so, but it's not scanty. So most people actually fall within that range. Like most people that you see would have medium density hair. So it's easy for you to, it's easier to manage, it's easier to just, I mean, you put them in styles, your styles look nice, you can curl it sometimes, you can do like braids and stuff, and your hair is fine. But if you now go to the other end, which is high density hair, so those hair types, they're very, very, very dense. I have high density hair. Like the amount of hair I have for every small, like every small portion of my scalp is a lot. So that's why my hair is really, really, is really, really thick, because high density. So I might just have more strands on the total area of my head than most people. So that's not something that, why a lot of people are like, oh my God, I wish my hair was that thick. It can be challenging, because high density hair is more prone to like single strand knots, tangling, because the hair, they're so close to each other, they can just easily tangle up. And if you now have certain textures too with very dense hair, it's just like recipe for tangles. So you have to try to keep your hair in a stretched state as much as you can. Put them in a style where there's not a lot of manipulation, and try to keep your hair away from styles that would snag or give you split ends, because when you have split ends and you have high density hair, it will just spread like wildfire, literally, and then you start to lose your hair really, really, really fast. Also, you should know that if you have high density hair, you probably will shed more hair, because of course shed hair is like strands of your hair that die on a daily basis. So the more hair you have, the more strands will die and new ones grow in their place. So you might sometimes detangle or do a style while you're trying to kind of get rid of the shed hair. It might look like a lot, but you have to realize that it's not as much, because you have a lot of hair. So what you're thinking, you might be comparing the amount of hair you're shedding to somebody who doesn't have your kind of density, and if you do that, it will look like you're shedding a whole lot more, but that's because you have more hair than they do. So more strands might die off and new strands will grow in their place. So it's really nothing to worry much about. So when if you watched last week's episode and you're watching this now, you will understand, at least you should be able to understand your hair type based on these 4 factors that we have discussed so far, and it will be able to help you make more informed decisions how to take care of your hair, what will work for you, what will not work. And I'm available for you to ask questions if you're not certain about certain things. If some parts of it are confusing for you, you can always use the comment box and ask me what you want to ask. If you're available for like an online or physical consultation, you can shoot me a message and ask whatever questions. I'm always available to help you. So thank you so much for watching up until this point. You have been patient, so thank you. And I hope that you have subscribed. If you haven't, please do. And please don't forget to share this channel with your friends. Don't forget to leave a nice comment in the comment box. And thank you so. Oh, and please check out my social media handles. They're in the description box below, so you and I can meet somewhere other than YouTube. Thank you so much, and have a nice day. Bye.